Bolt your windows. Lock your doors. Check your closets. Look under your bed. And then prepare yourself. For it's another episode of Dark Night of the Podcast. Whoa!
Listeners, fans of Dark Night of the Podcast, today's a big day. It's a big day. You're all invited to the party because Dark Night of the Podcast is officially 21. She's legal to drink, and we're gonna get wasted. White girl wasted with Roger and Troy.
Yes, indeed, as I drink my white girl Bud Light seltzer as we speak. That you can
I've
see.
got a mason jar filled with red wine. Right
Oh, yeah.
beside
See, the viewers, our listeners
Cheers.
can't see this, but yeah, we are definitely drinking some white girl drinks. But that's fine because, this is, especially for this particular episode.
Well, we're
it
21.
works.
I mean, that's what you do.
And it's the strip club after this.
Mm-hmm. You're telling me.
So yeah, 21 episodes. I am very excited about that. I didn't, when we started this, I didn't know how long it would go and, if people would listen, and it's going strong, and we are planning well into the future. So I think we'll probably reach, retirement age here.
Fingers crossed. I mean, well, yeah, no, you know what? In my mind, I thought, if we can make it past 20, it's going to be a real thing that I'm committing time to. And you know what? We fucking did it. And I'm committing time to it. And I'm really enjoying the response. Listeners, you seem to be keeping up. And we're very appreciative of that. We appreciate the recent surge of support and suggestions and recommendations. And all of these are things that you're going to see from us in the near future, as well as maybe some special guests coming up in the next few weeks. We'll talk about that after the review. Yes, we have exciting things to talk about after the review. But first things first, let's get down to brass tacks. Troy, we've got a fucking good one on our hands this week.
Yes, we do.
Messiah of evil, Messiah of evil, Messiah of evil. You deserve so much more recognition than you are given.
You know what? I agree. As a person who has not seen this film, before you recommended it, I was literally, and I mean, I don't want to spoil a review. Obviously, we're going to gush over the film, okay, but whatever. But I was just completely blown away by this film, and the fact that I've never seen it before, and B, it's not way more well known, because there are some sequences in this film that are among the creepiest, most disturbing shit I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my God. It's a film from 1973.
It does not.
It does not.
It doesn't feel like that at all. I had to keep checking the date because I'm like, this looks way later than 73.
Well, beyond the visuals of it, because if you look at the makeup and everything, it's very of the era. But you know what? The pacing, the usage of sound effects, the overall artistry of the execution of the suspense and the horror is so ahead of its time. And honestly, a lot of this acting. When I think of early 70s cinema, I think of a lot of larger than life performances, things that still felt kind of big and showy. And some of the performances in this are actually very good, very understated. Especially the character of Laura, I think, is really well played. And, we'll get more into this as we go in, just the who's, what's, and whys of it. But there's a lot of things about this movie that elevate it and help it stand the test of time. If anything, I think if people who have not seen this movie watch this movie, they are going to immediately want to add it to their collection. And I don't know if that's how you feel. We'll know as we go into this review, but it should be honored as one of the more groundbreaking pieces of cinema that transitioned out of that cheese dicky you know, when you think of like 60s, like kind of that sci-fi horror, transition out of that and into the more violent and artistic horror of the 70s, and eventually bridging into the Italian horror and everything that we see. There's a lot of that influence I see in this movie, and it's 1973. It's the early 70s.
Yeah, lighting, atmosphere.
Yeah.
A lot of it kind of gave me a Suspiria vibe.
Oh yeah.
And it's, Suspiria was 77. So, and this was, I just could not believe this was from 73. It just looks, I mean, yes, the style, the fashion is very 70s. I mean, from a aesthetic, it does not look like a 70s film, and it's very timeless, I think. I mean, I think the film, it definitely does, it looks like it could be of today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are so many things to, as you said, gush about with this film. Let's kind of get into the like the behind the scenes. What makes this movie tick? I think, really, honestly, the script itself, though convoluted upon first viewing, this is a film to the viewers. I want to say, watch it once and then go back and watch it again. Like, go back and really listen to the dialogue. You think this movie's convoluted, but honestly, as you listen to, there's a lot of like journal entries and voiceovers, and this is telling the entire story of everything you need to know going on in this, and the script is just really well executed, and the direction is really amazing, and the team behind this, it was directed by Willard Hayek, I hope I'm saying that right, and Gloria Katz, and this is the team who directed the movie Howard the Duck, which, I mean, light years different. The difference between these two movies is insane. But Howard the Duck, but they did produce the screenplays for American Graffiti and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So in their own right, they have their own kind of legacy within the world of cinema. So this is the team behind this, and honestly, it's expertly directed.
It is. And I also noticed one of the art directors for the film is Jack Fisk, who he's married to Sissy Spacek, and he's done a lot of art direction, set design, production design for a lot of really well-received films. He got 2 Oscar nominations for production design for The Revenant and There Will Be Blood. So you can definitely tell from this film that the art direction of this film is really great. So
oh my god, the visual, the moments in which this movie stuns, it blows me away, and I and this will be described as we go through this review, because we do go through it linearly, and I like that approach. But I've got to say, like, right off the bat, that is one thing I think I'm going to be raising up the most, is just the visual showmanship that this movie delivers. It is stunning. It is stunning. It is, as you said, ahead of its time. And there are full sequences that are executed that should be celebrated as pieces of art in my mind. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I don't want to get too carried away. We'll get into the storyline, but I really just do want to acknowledge that, this movie needs to be seen. If you have not seen this film, and I know we say this very often, but go and watch this movie.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to give that disclaimer right now. If you have not seen Messiah of Evil, please stop this and go watch it. Watch it twice, because it is a film that you do have to pay attention to. It's a very talky film in parts, but the talky part of the film gives a lot of information that makes a lot of what is happening in the film that initially might seem confusing and just like off the wall, out of nowhere, it makes sense. So you got to pay attention. So that's what we're going to ask. And so come back and listen to this when you've watched this film. And yeah, I say we go into it. I mean, I really don't have anything new and exciting to talk about. So
yeah, to be honest, this movie is what has been exciting for me this week. Upon watching it, revisiting it, I've just been very excited about picking this apart. So yeah, I feel like let's just dive into it. And one thing you said, this is pre-Suspiria, but my God, does it give me there are moments that I feel the same way I felt when I watched Suspiria. So when you're listening to this review, I want to give that kind of vibe that's very surreal.
Yes.
From beginning to end. It's very almost like outer body at times. It's very well executed. So the opening of the film, and it starts on a weird note. It opens with this ballad. It's like the completely like last style of music I would expect from this sequence, but in a weird way it works because the movie is so intentionally like disjointed at times. And I do believe they had a fair share of production issues while creating this film. So I almost feel like there are times that were maybe like choices that were made over the course of creating this movie. Choices were made to like bridge pieces together that in some ways make it feel kind of confusing, but in other ways it almost adds to it because the whole experience of this kind of curse, this curse that we'll go into of what's coming over this town of Point Dume. But so it opens with this sequence of this gentleman just being chased through the town. You don't know who he is. You're given no exposition. He's just being chased through this town, and he trips and he looks up and he sees a young girl, and basically she admits him into her backyard where he locks the door, and he collapses from exhaustion from having been chased by this. You don't see who it is, but you see this guy's exhausted, and basically she comes up to him and he kisses her on the hand. He's obviously very thankful, looking at her as though she's saved him, as though she's helped him. And then, bam, out of nowhere, the girl takes out a switchblade and she slices this dude's throat, and it like cuts to red, and it's like Messiah of fucking evil, and it just launches right into it.
The lighting in this opening scene, it's like there's almost like a pool in the backyard. So the blue like waves of the pool, it is bouncing off like the use of red lighting, so it looks really cool. That's kind of the first little Suspiria type or Argento type vibe I got from this film. The opening, yeah, very shock. I mean, I wouldn't say shocking, but I mean, maybe shocking for 73. We've seen a lot of stuff like this since then. But my question was, as far as it tying to the rest of the film, I guess it does. It's just never like strongly connected to the rest of the film, if that makes sense.
No, but it's alluded to in one of the next sequences coming up. And the one thing about this is I think I think this is an example of a film where you're supposed to put some pieces together for yourself.
Yes. And I did catch the scene that is alluded to after, but it was just like, it's kind of a weird way to start this particular film.
Yes. This is, as I said, this is a movie that it does you well to watch this a second and a third time. Like, once you get an idea.
Yeah, because watching the opening scene, you may think, hey, this is just going to be a cheesy early 70s slasher flick. And it's not.
There's motivation to what happens. There's motivation to who he is. There's motivation to what this girl is or what's come over her, causing her to commit this murder. It's explained, but you've really got to listen to it, as we said before, and you'll really get an idea for this as the movie goes on. But right from that, it launches into a completely different vibe. It goes into a voiceover. And the opening monologue, I think this monologue's fucking amazing. It sends vibes of Judy O'Day in Night of the Living Dead when she's having her Barbara breakdown, this kind of mentally unstable breakdown. And everyone knows I'm a fan of Night of the Living Dead, so obviously that's going to rub me the right way. But again, this monologue, it gives you a whole lot of story if you listen to it. You're introduced to this character of Arletty, who basically describes she's in an institution. She's been put there against her will. They're not listening to her, and she's trying to warn people about something that's coming. She's trying to warn people of something she's experienced and of what stemmed from the events that took place in this town. And the events are what you start to see unfold.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition. I had to listen to this monologue. Well, I watched the film 4 times, believe it or not, but I had to listen to this carefully each time because there is a lot thrown at you. Yeah, she talks about she was a town that used to be called Port Bethlehem. Now it's called Port Dume. And something happened to her there. She doesn't really get into it in this monologue. She alludes to that it was something horrible and that there are now a group of people that are going to be coming for not only her, but for like everybody. We're all in danger because of what's happening in this town. And then there is that really unsettling end part of the monologue where she's like, no one will hear you scream.
Oh my God. Right away, they give you one of the most like blood-curdling screams.
It is one of the most, I can't even recreate it. I'm going to
It's
try.
like throaty.
But it is one of the best screams I've ever heard in a movie. And it's super creepy.
Yeah. And you're basically like, you're watching the silhouette of her ascend or like make its way down this hallway.
Yes, that's another thing is you don't see the actress. Like you don't see her. You see a silhouette. You can tell it's in an asylum gown. The shot is stationary. just the camera's just focused on the hallway. And as she's telling the monologue, the figure, which is supposed to be her, is slowly just walking down this long hallway that's lit with just this like yellow lighting. And then when she gets to the very end of the hallway, right by the camera, that's when she kind of collapses against the wall and does that. And no one will hear you scream right into the camera. And it is very unsettling, very well done, very well executed, very creepy. I think 3 words you're going to hear me say throughout this podcast, so get used to it, is creepy, atmospheric, and surreal.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to use 3 words to just sum up this movie in general, it would, honestly, that's it. I'm on the exact same page. And the thing I really love about this shot, and this is something that you're going to, again, I think see consistently throughout the film because it's so expertly crafted, is this shot very much, to me, symbolizes the character's mental state at that point. It's shot like, in the distance, she's very blurry, out of focus. You're right, it's completely stationary, but she eventually comes to a place where she's in focus, but she collapses against the wall and is hidden by her hair, so you don't even see her face the whole time. But when she unleashes that scream, you see just her twitch. You see her, like, hair and her body twitch, and it's just very, like, visceral. There's a rawness to this whole monologue and to this response that you're getting from this character that, like, it's really giving you a great idea of what's to come, of what got her to this place mentally. So immediately you're launched into a series of flashbacks that are the bulk of the movie, in which you see her, Arletty, you finally see her. She's absolutely stunning. She's played by Mariana Hill. And she is a beautiful actress with amazing eye makeup. Whoever did her makeup in this, I deserved an award. But so she's on her way to Point Dume, the town that has been mentioned a few times already. This is the focus of the movie. And basically her father has set up residence in Point Dume now for some time. And he is an artist. And he has been living here creating art. And he's basically just gone silent. She hasn't been able to make any contact with them. And so finally she's coming to find her father to see what's happened, where he is, and if he's all right.
Yes, and it's a voiceover. Like a lot of the exposition is coming through a voiceover. So she's driving in her car to Point Dume as we're hearing her voiceover of the film. She comes upon a gas station, a mobile station. They must have paid some money to get their sign in the film like 90 times because it flashes the mobile station sign like 50 times in the scene. But she pulls into this gas station and she gets out, and right away it's just kind of an unsettling sight because the gas station attendant is like off in the distance, like shooting at stuff in the woods in the darkness. And so he comes back and he tells her it's stray dogs. It's just stray dogs. And again, I think that this film at this point, even though this was 73, even this gas station looks like quite modern. I don't know what I keep saying that, but like this is like it does not look like a gas station I would expect in 73. It's very modern looking. The gas pumps are very elaborate. I don't know. I just picked it. Very well lit. It's
very
big,
well lit.
A lot of signs are huge for the mobile station. But she tells him, or she mentions to him that hey, isn't that Point Dume right down the street? And he's like, right away, he's like, well, but I don't understand why anybody would want to go to Port Dume. At the same moment, this red truck pulls up.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, one little quick thing, and since we've watched this a few times, and this is a spoiler-based review, one thing I want to acknowledge is this movie alludes to itself a lot. The simplicities of it. He's firing into the woods. He's saying, it's dogs. And she says, that doesn't sound like dogs. Well, now, I mean, after having watched it a few times, you know that there's something else in these woods, But it's handled in such a simplistic way in the midst of this conversation through, again, very well executed dialogue. The acting in this for early 70s is really pretty superb. It's just another piece of the convo, but then you come back and you find all these little puzzle pieces that you start to realize exactly what's going on way earlier than you even know. And so this truck pulls up, and listen, out of this truck steps the most terrifying looking man I have ever seen in a movie ever. And I'm sorry. He's an albino man. He's probably like 6'4". He has a voice that is bone chilling. It sounds like this, and it doesn't. Like he doesn't sound like a real fucking person, and he has a glare on him that sends shivers down my spine. This man is horrifying. Wherever they found him, if this is what he naturally looks like, he is the man of my nightmares.
Yeah, it is. It is. I have the same note. One of the creepiest looking people I've ever seen. And it has nothing to do with him being an albino. It has all to do with just the way he carries himself in like that, like this stare that he gives and just his mannerisms. I mean, and plus the fact that he's like a towering, like 7 foot tall guy. The albino aspect of it is very jarring as well.
Yeah.
But the casting for this particular, because he's creepy, because he's like the guy, the attendant's like, you want me to fill it up? And he's like, $2. And just like stands there at the edge of the gas at the gas pump, just staring at Arletty the entire time. The gas station, and then the gas station attendant goes to fill up his truck, and it's a pickup truck, and he notices there is a tarp in the back of the pickup truck, and he, being curious, lifts the tarp up, and there are 2 dead bodies under the tarp, and one of them is the guy that gets his throat slit from the opening scene. Okay, so I know that's where that comes back into play. The other one, we don't know who it is.
Yes.
The gas station guy does not act too shocked. He just like puts the tarp back down, looks over at the guy, and doesn't really react. So I'm wondering that to me right away is very like, if that was me, I'd be like screaming and like running away. This guy is obviously it's alluding to or hinting to the fact that this gas station guy must know what's going on.
Yeah, well, and if you listen to his dialogue, there's one other thing right as the truck is pulling up, and what you just stated is something else that I think kind of plays into this, is he says, Point Dume, why would anyone want to go there? It's just a piss-poor little town, deader than hell. And when I hear deader than hell, that sounds like a very intentionally placed line, in the writing of the script. There's several little lines in this that also, again, when I say this movie is self-aware, there's another point later in the movie where a character says, we're never getting out of here, are we? But they're saying it in a very passive way.
Yep.
And, there's a lot more meaning to that line than that character actually knows within the dialogue, But so, he says, just a piss-poor little town, deader than hell. And I wonder if this is something alluding to the fact that, there are myths and legends and rumors about Point Dume. It is pretty apparent that people know to a certain extent that there's something going on in Point Dume. There's several characters who mention strange things going on in Point Dume. You hear it in the father's journal to an extensive amount because he's been living there. You meet a homeless character at one point who knows something's been going on there. The police even say things that I wonder if what extent they know, because later on there's even a sequence involving police officers. So I'm wondering, is this something that is extended beyond just Point Dume? Do people around Point Dume have an idea that there's something more going on? There's something dark going on. Now, I don't know for sure. It's not said for sure.
No, based on this gas station attendant's reaction, I would say yes, or at least he knows, because it's really a non-reaction. Like, it doesn't even faze him really. Although Arletty comes over and tries to give him her credit card to pay for her gas, and he's like, oh, the machine's broke. Don't you have cash? And she's like, no. And he's like, get the hell out of here, like under his breath, like really aggressively. And so she goes, and the tall albino guy standing there. So he goes and gives him back. He goes and gets the $2, and that's that until we get the next scene where the gas station attendant is working underneath a car in the garage of the mobile station. It's the gas station. And all of a sudden, like, the lights go out and the car's up on one of those hydraulic jack things. He's underneath it. So all of a sudden the car starts to come down, and he like rolls underneath the car, and all of a sudden there's just like some random person that's in this car that literally like jumps out the door on top of him. And you just hear this, and it cuts to the exterior of the mobile station. You just hear this horrific like growling and screaming. it's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, it's very simplistic in its execution, but it's very intentional. You know, the car goes down. He rolls out. He looks up. He sees the person. Cuts outside, and the lighting on the gas station goes out, like, and it goes to black.
Which is actually I don't want to say a theme, but that's a motif that runs through this movie is like whenever anybody's about ready to get killed and they're in a public place, the lights go out, which I thought was an really cool little touch. It's carried throughout the film. Anyways, there is this shot of this that I didn't expect. Okay. Of the gas station attendant's body, all bloody. And so he was partly laying still on the hydraulic jack part of the device, and it starts to go up and it like literally lifts his body. So his body is like hanging halfway off this hydraulic jack as it's going up, and he's just hanging there and blood's dripping all over the place. Really, really cool shot.
I think that should be an iconic. Like when you look at shots from horror movies that should be remembered, that shot of him covered, and it's that when we say like the red of the blood in this movie, it is that 1970s electric red, but my God, it works so good in this movie because it's so rich, it's so saturated, and the movie is so in your head. You know, it pops, and this shot, you know, he's just so limp, his arms dangling as his body gets lifted, and that's all it is. That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really effective. I mean, I would count it among one of the probably best like aftermath scenes. If you think about like Scream, when you get to see Casey Becker hanging from a tree, or like Suspiria when the body falls through the glass, or whatever. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, you know, and looking at this character in conclusion, because obviously he dies. This is the last time we see this specific character. I wonder if almost, you know, we're talking about what he knows, what he doesn't know, how it plays into the rest of the film. I almost wonder if it's kind of like an equivalent to, say, like in the Hills Have Eyes remake, there's that gas station attendant who knows to a certain extent, and ends up being dispatched when he doesn't follow the rules. I almost wonder if this is a situation where he, because of the way it's shot, when you look at the interaction, you know, he tells Arletty to get out. And then there's that awkward moment with him and the albino gentleman where he walks away and the albino man just watches him walk away. And I almost wonder if his, if he does know and he's warning Arletty, and that's what did him in. Because that's something else you also see with another character coming up is they tell Arletty a little too much, and that plays factor into what happens to them. So I wonder, I feel that he must know something, and this is the purpose for why he is killed, you know? Yeah. So from here, you follow Arletty's journey to her father's home in Point Dume. And when she arrives at the house, you've got this kind of like slow, quiet sequence of her making her way around the beach of the house, because the house is right on the shore, and it's right on the edge of the beach. And again, this beautiful sequence with a very minimal score. This is one thing that carries through the whole movie. There are times where it's just the usage of the waves crashing, the wind.
There is very little score in this movie. That's something else I noted, which is a completely different than a lot of the 70s horror flicks, especially the Italian horror flicks that had these larger than life, loud scores that were sometimes not even fitting with the film. They were just just be loud. And this film is very subtle with its score. And you're like you said, a lot of the score is just natural sounds, the waves, the waves hitting the rocks on the ocean. The wind howling through the trees. It's very effective. It's very atmospheric.
But when it uses score, it is very well placed and very effective, in my opinion. And even when it's down to something like a stinger, like there's this moment in this sequence of her walking around the house where she's startled by the sail on a sailboat that's on the sand, and she turns a corner and the sail billows in her face and it cuts in tighter on her, and you hear this stinger, and it's so well placed because honestly, I cannot remember the last time, Troy, that I watched a movie from this era and I jumped. And I actually, other than just, being enamored with the beauty, this movie has several moments where I actually jumped with fear, and it takes a lot to get that kind of response out of me. So this movie is not only visually stunning, it's also successful at several times over the course of this film, scaring, actually scaring the audience. For a movie that, this old, that's surprising to me. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. So she actually has to, her dad's nowhere around, obviously. So she actually has to like break in. She busts the window pane on the door to get in. Obviously nobody's there. The interior of this house is so strange. And it's not just the layout, which is really strange and confusing, but it's also the decor. I mean, the walls are painted with like murals of various people, and then like there's this one wall where there's this, it looks like escalators are just painted on the wall. And if like watching the film the first time, I actually thought they were real like escalators. I'm like, oh my god, this house has escalators in, but it's actually it's painted on the wall, so it's really hard to discern in this house like what is real and what's painted on the wall. It's really
But that
odd.
also,
Not
oh, sorry,
only
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, not only to mention, I want one of those hanging
Oh my
beds.
god.
There's like in the middle of this room, there's like this slab bed that's hanging from four chairs that just like swings. Oh, I want that. I need that.
I mean, I think this is the coolest fucking house I've ever seen. I mean, next to the house in like The Haunting, like when they like first get in, they're like, oh, it's so beautiful. No, but this house is so well, I mean, it's an artist's loft, is what it is. Her father's an artist, and so what while strange as it may be, again, here's a moment where this movie is completely aware of what it's doing. Her father's an artist, and he's obviously, as you're hearing these journal entries, because you hear them all throughout the movie, you're learning that his mental state is declining. And as you see, these murals all around this home, all around the interior, the walls of this house, what he basically did is he painted what I'm taking to be aspects of Point Dume. There's an area of a boardwalk where when she stands in front of it, when it's lit a certain way, it just looks like she's on an amazing set.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's really
so what these murals do is manages to create some beautiful imagery where it gives you these. It basically plays tricks on your mind. The way it films it in certain angles, it looks like the characters are actually in different locations than just being in this house. But it also gives you these silhouettes of these figures, which very much comes into play with what the father's seeing. You can tell he's painting what he's experiencing on the walls of this house. As the movie progresses, you start to see that in these images because they play factor into the movie. But God, it creates some amazing visuals as she's walking through this home.
Yeah. And this is she finds the journal, and this journal, we get a lot of voiceover narration from this journal throughout the film. So, and we're not going to get into, I don't think we're getting into everything it says, but it does basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Document his decline of mental state. So like the first entry she reads is very like, oh, well, I feel like this town is kind of weird. There's some, but as it goes on, the journal entries get a lot more sinister.
Yeah.
But the next day, because I mean, this scene, she checks out the house. The next day, she goes for a walk on the beach, and she sees a pile of wood that is just like burning on the beach, which you may think is just like maybe like a time filler or a weird transition, but it actually does play into the film. There is a lot of mention of fire and wood burning and things like that throughout, especially like the later journal entries.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and there's lots of scenes like this, to be honest. Like one thing, again, for the viewers who have not seen this movie or maybe are going to be revisiting it, one thing you need to keep in mind is a lot of this, I think on first viewing, you think is just like weird psychedelic trippy imagery. Everything ties into something, in my opinion. From what I take away, every scene is a small puzzle piece creating a bigger picture. And that's what telling a great story is. That's what creating a great film is. And this does this expertly crafted. So she goes to this artist, this local artist in one of the towns nearby, who sells art from people around the area. And it cuts to the sequence of this old woman basically groping her face. I'm assuming this woman is a blind woman, and she's groping her face, and she like steps back, and she like, with her fingers like tells her gentleman assistant exactly like who it is and what it is that she needs to know. It's a very strange transition, and I wish this woman was in the movie more.
Yeah, it is strange. And yes, the old woman is blind. She mentions the old woman is blind, that the owner of this art gallery is blind, and she's just like, she does all this weird stuff with her hands. That's not even like silent. It's just like weird. And the guy, her assistant, tells Arnetti that there were actually people in the art gallery earlier that day who were actually looking for her father. And Arnetti is actually taken by surprise. She's like, "Oh, really? Who are they?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know, but they're staying at the Seven Seas Motel." The next scene cuts to the Seven Seas Hotel, which is another just weird scene. Like,
oh my god! But honestly, in the terms of like creepy, fucking performances, this homeless man gets the prize, in my opinion. She walks into the room of this hotel, and she basically walks in the middle of a story being told by like the town drunk, or what I'm assuming is the town homeless man, and he's in the middle of telling this very eccentric, wild story to a group of three people who are all laying on, or two people are laying on a bed. You find there's a third person. And they're recording the story. They're recording what he's saying.
He's telling them about his birth and how when he was born, his mother was going to feed him to chickens. And his father was like, "Oh, well, maybe we do need a little boy around." And so they decided to keep him.
That's a depressing start to one's life. Chicken food? I didn't even know chickens ate meat. But that sounds like an unreasonable way to get rid of one's child.
But there's the couple laying on the bed, which happens to be Laura and Tom.
Yeah, Thom. But it's Tom, but it's spelled Thom. Thom.
Yeah.
So it's like a gay lisp Tom.
Yeah. And then he's also going on about, well, all of a sudden another girl like comes out of the bathroom, and you find out that it's basically what we would call nowadays it's a throuple. Tom, Laura, and Tony. They're a throuple.
Yeah, and Tom is, just to give like a little story, because you're going to find out later, but he's basically a very rich Portuguese aristocrat who collects artistic lure, or pieces of art tied to like stories and tales, and he's here in this town trying to collect this artwork tied to Point Dume because he's heard about the myths and the legends of Point Dume, and that's what's brought him here, along with his groupies, his two basically girlfriends.
Yeah, so the homeless man proceeds to tell a story about basically the town and the arrival of the blood moon. And when this blood moon came years ago, people like literally like came out of the canyon, and children started eating raw meat, and just like the whole town went kind of nuts. And then all of a sudden he has to leave.
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, I gotta go." So you just told these weird stories, and the story of you becoming chicken food almost because he's like, "Oh, I gotta jet, let people by."
Yeah, and as he gets ready to go, you can tell in my opinion, it reads that he's realizing he's telling too much. I do get a vibe from a lot of the characters on the outskirts of this town that people around Point Dume know what's going on in Point Dume, and as long as there's a certain level of, I guess, cooperation, they're spared. Because you start to see a lot of the people that do die early on, the first few deaths are people who are caught telling too much, warning people, alluding to what's going on. So yeah, this homeless gentleman scurries away with his wine bottle in hand, and Arletty basically is given the chance to inquire about her father and what this group of individuals may know about her father.
Yeah, and they don't really know anything. All they know is that, or all Tom did basically to even start this whole conversation about her father was he says he saw a painting in the window of this art gallery, and he went in and he found out that her father was the artist that painted it. And Our lady's a little bit taken aback because she's like, well, there was no paintings of my father at the gallery. And he's like, well, it was there earlier. So basically, she leaves the hotel, and when she's leaving, she runs back into the homeless man. And this is when he tells her basically that, I mean, it's a lot of foreshadowing, but he tells her about her father and that she's going to have to kill her father and that she can't just bury him. When she does, she's going to have to burn him.
Yeah. And again, the homeless man's performance is honestly, again, for this era, like it's pretty chilling. And the way he says it, he's like, you're going to have to, you're not going to be able to put him in the ground. You're going to have to burn him. Like and then he scurries away again. He's basically like, I've said too much. He runs away, and she is convinced the guy's crazy, understandably so. But these are all important things. Like if you as a first time viewer or even someone coming back and revisiting it, you've got to listen to the dialogue. Yeah. You've got to listen to everything because it all falls together and it all starts to, I don't say make sense, but this is a movie that you think it's convoluted. It's not. So
it is. No. It is. And it's a very actually straightforward, simple plot that is perhaps made a little bit more convoluted via the voiceover, journal entries, dialogue, but it's really no more, you know what? It really is no more convoluted if you think about it than like The Evil Dead, which did a lot of the same thing. If you remember the original Evil Dead, it's very similar in terms of the fact that you're getting a lot of narration from the journal that the kids find in the cellar that belonged to the guy that was at the cabin.
Right. And even a piece of the dialogue here that the man's saying, he says when his father told him the stories of the blood moon, he said it was the night his father lost his religion and learned men can do horrible things like animals. And earlier you're saying there's wild dogs in the woods, that bodies that people are being found killed, they look like they've been eaten by wild dogs. These are all these little lines that if you hear them, it starts to fall together and make sense. And so she goes, after that night, she goes back to her house and she falls asleep in this horrifying room with this beautiful suspended bed, which must be very hard to make love in because it'd be like being on a roller coaster.
No, but it looks like it's a slab of cement with a sheet on it.
It does not look comfortable.
It's not a mattress. No. It's just like a slab of, but I still need it in my living room.
I agree.
I would just like lay there in front of the TV and watch what's Messiah of Evil.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, it's really cool. But yeah, it's like, it doesn't look comfortable, but it looks really cool.
Well, it's surrounded by those murals of horrifying faces just glaring out of the shadows. It's terrifying.
She wakes up, she hears a noise. And so there's this like creepy scene where you hear this like weird humming noise. And she's like walking through this dark house with all of these weird murals on the wall. And she gets to this room that the noise is coming from. And all of a sudden, Laura
just steps out of the room with a fucking blow dryer like it's no big deal.
She is blow drying her hair. And apparently the throuple have decided that they're just going to stay at this house without even asking, they've just moved all their stuff in.
Well, I mean, she did bust in the glass in the door earlier and let herself in. So I feel like it's a kind of no rules
free-for-all
policy at this point. But yeah, they basically are like, we're going to stay here the night. And she's like, you are? And they're like, yeah, we got kicked out of the hotel and everyone else in town seems to have shuttered their doors. Also foreboding.
And Charlie was found dead.
The homeless man. Also foreboding.
He was half eaten.
Sound familiar? No. All of this is starting to make sense. So yeah.
But they say, oh well, he must have got drunk and fell and hit his head, and then a pack of dogs must have came and started feeding off of his body. That's the kind of the excuse they give for the fact that he was half eating. Or half eaten, not half eating. So then there's like she decides to let him stay, which is kind of odd. And then there's all of a sudden, like right away, there's like the weird tension between the three girls. It's like the two are not really feeling having this other broad around.
Well, and also the competition. Oh, I guess competition to a certain extent. It just seems like there's tension between a lot of the characters. Like, for example, like at one point Tom says about Tony, he's like, Tony, you're half girl, half child, and half wit. Because Tony's like the young one, she's the dumb one. But he talks down to her a lot. And he obviously is like, because he has money, because he alludes to the fact that he's from a very rich family, I feel these girls are kind of like in this groupie situation with him, but they don't necessarily all get along. And Arletty doesn't initially respond very well to him either. Even Laura makes a comment, she's like, Tom likes to collect things. And Arletty responds by saying, like old drunks, because, you know, they had paid the old man in booze to tell them everything about the blood moon that he knows. So, you know, Arletty is pretty resistant to them at first, but she even says, she's like, for some reason I let them stay with me. I don't even know why.
Yeah. And then they're eating dinner together, and even Laura is kind of being a bitch because she's sort of making like snide jabs at her father's paintings, because they're looking around at the paintings on the wall, and Tom is like, oh, well, your dad did all these paintings, and Laura like very like snarkily says, oh, has he been painting long?
Yeah.
It's just little.
Yeah, there's a lot of bitchy little comments made back and forth.
Yeah, and then there's like Tony saying whatever she's eating was shitty tasting. She just out of the blue, she's like, this is shitty tasting. And Laura's like, you're not supposed to eat the fuzz. I don't know what she was eating that would have fuzz on it, but
oh God, what is it? It's a kind of vegetable, like an artichoke or something. I don't fucking know, but it looked disgusting. So I understand Tony's angle on it. But, and I do have to say one thing here. I'm gayer than Eileen Quinn's performance as Annie in the movie Annie. But I've gotta say, for the record book, that the character of Laura is played by Anitra Ford, and she is, I swear to God, probably the single most physically beautiful woman I have seen in a movie ever in my life. She is stunning. I cannot even put into words how some of these sequences, especially one pivotal sequence with her coming up, where her beauty is just contrasted very well against the horror that's going on around her. But every time she's on camera, the camera loves her, and her performance is honestly, I might say, even the strongest acting performance in the movie. She's very understated, very natural. But God, she's fucking beautiful. She's so beautiful. And so she's the character who starts to express her distaste with Tom in general, the loudest. She's proclaiming that she's pretty unhappy with Tom.
Well, yeah, because what happens is Tom is basically after dinner, he goes out to the beach and he sees a bunch of people on the beach just standing around fires. There we go. It kind of ties back to Arnetti finding the fire going that morning before. He goes back to the house and he starts to kind of flirt subtly with Arnetti, and he gives her a hug. Like, he just grabs her and gives her a hug. Well, Laura sees this and she is not happy. So she basically goes and packs her bag and is like, Tony's in the bathtub taking a bath, and she's like, where are you going? And she's like, oh, I'm leaving. And Tony's like, oh, for how long? And she's like, well, forever. She's like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of Tom. All he does is lead me on. All he does is lie. And I'm going to go to San Francisco. So I'm out of here.
Yeah. The sequence between Tom and Arletty, like, he is way too confident for his own good. I wouldn't say she's ever completely 100% smitten with Tom. Arletty is very uncomfortable with Tom at first, and he like forces her to unzip his vest, and then he like uses it as like a come on to her, and she's like, I don't know about this, and he's like, he embraces her nonetheless, and her face is so like uncomfortable. I don't know if he's really succeeding at like sweeping her off her feet, but Laura is still nonetheless displeased with this, and it leads to this dialogue sequence between Laura and Tony that some of the dialogue sequences in this even are shot so well. They're so striking that like it could take a very simple moment and make it very memorable. And there's this little conversation between Laura and Tony where she tells Tony she's going to be leaving, and it's filmed in this bathroom against this another mural that has a series of faces at an angle. So it looks like the face furthest to the left is the largest, and as it goes along the wall, it goes into the background. The people become smaller and smaller, and where Laura seats herself opposite of Tony, who's in the tub on the opposite side of the frame. She seats herself next to the largest mural. And so where she's sitting, it looks like she's perfectly placed in this row of people seated, going off into the distance. You got to see the shot to understand. It's so beautiful, and it's framed so well. I just can't take my eyes off of the sequence. At the end of the scene, as she's saying she's going to leave, and she's kind of mourning her time wasted on Tom, she looks in the mirror and she says, in this perfectly delivered line, "He's given me too many lines," as in like wrinkles. And she leaves, and it's such a good piece of dialogue to end the scene on. It's just such a good scene.
Well, and then what follows is pretty great in its own right, but a completely different way. So she's out on the road walking through town, the town is eerily quiet, and all of a sudden, what pulls up next to her but the red truck that we saw at the gas station in the earlier scene. And of course, it's the albino, and he pulls up and he's like, "Hey, do you want to ride?" And she looks, and there's like, in the back of the pickup truck, there's like 8 guys that are sitting in the back of the pickup truck, and they're just all staring up at the moon. So she looks up and it's just a full moon. There's nothing, but they're all like fixated on the moon. So she's like, okay, I'll get in. And she gets in.
Yeah. Yeah. This whole sequence of even the truck pulling up, again, usage of sound effects. She's walking through an area of the town in which all of the houses around her are just the wooden frames of houses in the midst of construction, and the road is dirt, and it's so bleak. And it's this really wide shot, and she's very small in the middle of it. And in the distance, you hear the howling of wolves or dogs. And, they've mentioned several times now people having been killed and eaten by dogs. You've heard this in the dialogue. And so this truck pulls up, and she literally looks at the driver. She looks at the back. She looks up at the moon. She looks back at the driver. And you literally see the moment where she's like, fuck it. And it's so well executed, because it literally is almost like nodding to itself, like, yes, it's absurd she's getting in this truck, but like, what else the fuck is she going to do? And she like shrugs it off. She's like, why the hell not? And she gets in. It's very self-aware. It's almost like kind of winking at itself. I love it.
There's a couple of moments that do that same thing. So she gets in, and it's just immediately like an awkward conversation.
Immediately.
He's like, there's whatever's playing on the radio. He's like, do you like, I don't even remember the musician, but he's like, do you like blah, blah, blah? And she's like, oh yeah, they're great. And then he's like,
it's a classical
yeah,
music.
I don't know what it was. I can't remember. And then he's like, I was out on the beach all night and I found some little friends. And she's like, oh, okay, that's nice. And she's like, oh, what friends did you find? He's like, beach rats. And he pulls out a rat by its tail and he's dangling it. And she's like, oh, and you could just see her face. She's like, what the fuck? She's like, oh, what do you do with those? He's like, oh, what do I do with these? I eat them. And he literally takes the rat and bites its head off.
Oh my God.
And
it's disgusting.
And he looks at her with this big old smile on his face and blood running down his chin. And he's like, I have another one if you want one. And she's like, no, I'm good. I will get out right here. Pull over. I'm good. And he does pull over and let her out. And she gets out and she's like, Jesus Christ. And the guys in the back are like still staring straight up at the moon. It's weird. So weird.
It's so weird. And a few things he says in the dialogue there. Again, moments, if you're really listening, it kind of starts to connect all the tissue connects. He asks her, first thing, he's like, you coming back from the waiting on the beach? The waiting is a term that you start to realize this whole kind of curse, this kind of, I guess, a cult-like curse. Once you start to fall under it, it's called the waiting. And all of these bonfires being burned on the beach, once you start to see more footage of them, you see that the people are all looking up at the moon, the blood moon. It all kind of ties together. And these men in the back of his truck looking up at the moon as though they're under a trance. And then he is somebody who you start to see in some of these later sequences as well. He kind of fits all of these different descriptions of what the people under this trance look like, how they operate. And so when she's asking about this, and he says everybody was there, even the little critters, and they're my favorite. And that's when he takes out the rat and he eats the rat. Well, you start to find out people under this curse eating raw meat or eating living flesh. And I from what I take away from this character, because he's not really ever explained,
No.
but I feel that this character, he's under this curse, and he's kind of going outside of the boundaries of the town and bringing back meat, bringing back flesh for the people under the curse to consume. This is what I'm gathering, is what I'm understanding. And tell me if maybe you're following the same thing. Even the sequence in the opening of the movie, you see the guy get his throat slit by a girl. I'm assuming this girl is also under the curse. Then you see his body in the back of the truck. It's the same truck that's now heading back to the town again. Later in the movie, you see the albino gentleman as part of the crowd. Clearly he's under this curse. So I'm starting to gather that this is his involvement within this cult, within the townspeople. Again, it's never really clearly explained, but that's what I'm gathering from it. And so when he starts to realize that she's not in the town, she's not a townsperson, she's not actually under this trance, she gets out of the vehicle and she runs away from the vehicle and she goes into the town and she's trying to look for a hotel, and she starts to realize that it's empty, that everything is pretty much dead.
Yeah, the town is eerily empty. There is like nothing around, nothing open. There's no cars on the street. There's no people on the street, with the exception of one guy. As she's walking away from the hotel, she sees a guy walking in front of her, and she calls out to him several times, "Hey!" And he looks back at her one time and then turns around and keeps walking, totally ignores her. And she keeps following him, "Hey, hey." And he happens to just lead her into this parking lot of a giant supermarket, Ralph's supermarket to be precise. And parking lot is completely empty, but the supermarket is lit up like a Christmas tree. It's obviously it must be open, because the guy walks in and she walks in, and the supermarket music's playing and everything. And she's kind of casually strolling through the aisles. And like every time she reaches like an aisle, she looks down and there just happens to be like a different person. Like each time she looks down the aisle at the other end of the aisle. And there's like this one time where like she goes to the aisle and looks down and there's just this guy just standing there staring straight at her.
Like, it's fucking terrifying. And if you look at him, like all of these people, because you see little snippets of them moving, past the aisles. But when you finally get a good shot on one of the individuals, like their faces are like milk white. But their eyes, because it's always from a distance, their eyes are just black. There's like black pits around their eyes. It's so effective. It's so simple. Very, very similar to kind of the effect of the Romero zombies from the first Night of the Living Dead in the distance, with the dark pits around the eyes. But yeah, they look very off.
Yeah.
And they're all moving in the same direction. So she starts moving in that same direction as well. At the same time, everything audio-wise, silent, except for the sound of her heels on the tile. This is important.
Yeah, because as she turns the corner and arrives at the meat section of the supermarket, there are a horde of people hovering over the meat cooler and literally devouring all of the raw meat, like shoving it in their mouths, ripping the packages over. There's a guy chewing on a steak, an old lady eating like a chicken thigh, and it's all raw. And they're just going to town. And she like steps back disgusted. And one guy just happens to turn over and look at her. And yeah, their faces are pale, very pale. And it's so just unsettling. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just, you're not expecting it.
Not at all. And it's like, if you look at a few of them, even you can see that there's red lining the bottom of their eyelids. And again, even this plays into factor. But they all look up at her, and she obviously is repulsed, and she just turns and starts to run. And as she's running, she notices that they're starting to follow her. And again, there's no score. except for the sound of the heels on the tile. And you see shots of all of them starting to move after her, and they're running. They're not just walking. They are these individuals chase. Yeah, they do take chase. And as you hear the footfalls, you hear more of them, the clicking, more, layering over. Like the sound is growing, and it's so effective. It's so terrifying. And she loses her purse, and she gets to the door, and the door is locked, and she has to climb over the metal bar of the leading up to the door, like the rotation bar. She's trapped, and she's basically starting to panic. So she takes off running through the market, and she turns and looks one direction, and she sees another individual holding a piece of meat, and they just like look at her and drop it and start to come at her. It's terrifying. This sequence is cinematic gold, and it really is just like such well executed suspense through fast cuts and great audio, and this weird like jazz music starts to come in. It's weird, but it works. And all of a sudden she turns and she sees this individual coming at her, and she starts to back up, and one of them just appears from behind her and grabs her and takes her down, and they all just climb on top of her. It's horrifying.
It is horrifying, and you hear her screaming, and we're assuming they're eating her alive. It's such a terrifying, like you said, terrifying scene. So well done. I'm surprised, like I said, I'm so surprised it's not more well known or well regarded as one of the more terrifying scenes in cinema history. There's two scenes in this film that really could be that, and this one is one, and then we're coming up on the other one as well.
Yeah, and again, just to say, Anitra Ford, her performance in the sequence, beyond just being beautiful, like the fear in her face is really, when I think of a lot of early 1970s and prior cinema, I think of acting that doesn't always register as believable. And my God, like this whole sequence really just sent chills down my back. So really well executed. And you're right, there is another scene coming up that's just as good, if not in some ways better. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, so now we get back to the house, and there's more of the journal reading voiceover, and we get the first kind of mention of this dark stranger who arrived in this town 100 years ago, and after his arrival, strange things start to happen. So that's what we're told. That's all we get at this point. And then we cut to Tom and Tony are in bed, trying to listen to a radio, but for some reason, this town has no radio stations at all, and she's getting frustrated. The only radio station she could get is one from Idaho, and she's like, Idaho? And then this is the first time that she mentions she wants to go home. She wants to leave, and that she's scared. And this is, I think, the moment that she mentions that we're not leaving here, are we?
It's the moment when she's playing with the cards and she's singing
because there's another
to herself.
Yeah. But then we go to our Nettie sleeping, and this figure approaches and turns on the light, and we don't really know who the figure is, but she gets up and she is kind of startled that the light is on, and she's walking around the room, and this painting falls, startles her, but then she notices the painting behind it has like, it's a face, it's a painting of a face, and the eye is like bleeding, and she touches the painting, and it's the eye, and it's actually liquid blood.
Yeah, that whole sequence, everything within. Okay, well, first, like the journal entries, because now Tom is also listening to or reading. We hear the journal entries as voiceovers, but he's reading the journal as well. So at this point, you're starting to understand that the father is falling under the spell of Point Dume, and basically, like, you're slowly taken over by the spell, and you start to hallucinate and see visions and go mad with like visions of death. And so, as you hear the progressive state of the father, you're also starting to see Arletty experience these things. So this whole sequence is placed at a point where, within the father's, description of what he's experiencing, it's kind of aligning with where she's at within her being taken over by Point Dume. And so this whole sequence with the painting, it's really striking because she's moving through the shadows. And after a startle, she turns around and she sees this painting like folded down, but the image very much resembles her face. Like if you look at it, it looks like her. and there's that hole punctured in the eye, and as she gets close to it, it leaks that red blood, and the blood used in this movie is very paint like, but there's something about the blood in the shot that does not, it reads like blood, and you see it and you know it's real, and that's all you really get from it, you know. But you could tell that she's starting to lose her grasp of reality.
Yeah, because then she goes into where Tom is sleeping with Tony, and he wakes up and sees her, and he asks her what's wrong, and she's like, I don't know. It's strange things are happening. So he tells her to get in bed with them, and they kind of have this conversation. He's like, well, maybe we should just leave. And this is when she's like, yeah, I'd leave. Maybe I can get some sleep. And Tony actually leaves and goes lays on the swingy bed and tries to go to sleep, but she can't because of all of the she gets freaked out by all the paintings on the wall. So it's kind of a funny scene where every direction she turns to sleep in, there's a different silhouette staring at her.
Yeah, and right after she rolls over, because she's finally covers her head with the pillow, right after she rolls over, you get this really expertly placed, quick flash cut of what is the glass ceiling of this house, and a silhouette of a figure very obviously staring through the glass, like up against the glass. It's just shadowed. You don't know who it is, but they're up against the glass. It's a very Suspiria cut, in my opinion, pre-Suspiria, but it's a fast cut with a really good stinger, and it's another moment that made me jump. Like, holy fuck! Like, it's really well.
Yeah,
placed.
it's like the person is like, they're not even like, they're not just standing at the glass, they're like straddling it like a spider almost. Like their hands are like pressed, and it's it's just real quick, but it's startling. The next day, our lady gets a phone call, and we find out that they basically tell her that they found her father's body on the beach, and that he must have died in a freak accident because he was building the sculpture on the beach, and somehow it must have fell on him. So they take her to the beach, and this is a really weird scene because they let her go up to the wreckage and let her touch his hand is the only thing you can see. It's sticking out from under this wreckage, and she gets to touch his hand, and that's all they really let her do. And I'm thinking to myself, like most police officers or, morticians or county coroners, if they're going to call you to a crime scene to show you your loved one or to help you identify their loved one, they're actually going to have the body already pulled out of whatever it was from and like laying on a stretcher for you to come and be like, okay. But they just let her touch his hand, and they're like, oh yeah, that's your father. He must have died in an accident. We're all good. So that's that for now, even though she tells Tom later she knows that it wasn't her father. But she could tell by his hand that it wasn't him.
Yeah, her father was an artist, and they even they mention one of the first things she says is the police say that it must have been a meth problem, that he had been found wandering in the town, unsure of where he was several times before this. The police make it sound like the father was, well, apparently addicted to meth, but like kind of losing his mind. And they use this whole story and, the whole discovery of the body to basically tell Tom, you should really get her out of here. Like, you should take her home, back to her home. You should leave Point Dume, because, we don't really want this kind of situation to blow up. We don't have situations like this a lot. And you should just take her home. But then when they go back to the house, she says she knows her father's hands because he was an artist. He had very beautiful, fine hands, and the hands in this body were coarse and rough. And even though she didn't see the face, she's absolutely positive it's not her father.
And they never let her see anything else. This is, and then we get Tony singing in bed, playing with the cards. And she asks Tom how Arnettie's doing, and he doesn't really answer her. And he looks at her and he suggests that she goes to a movie. And she gets all excited because she's like, oh, yay, okay, I can take the car then, and you guys can have some alone time. we get another voiceover as Arnetti wakes up from a nap of the father talking about how his body temperature has now dropped to 85 degrees. So not only is are these other weird things happening, now he's saying his body temperature is now 85 degrees. She looks up and she looks in the mirror and she has blood like coming down her neck.
Yeah, coming from her ear. Yeah.
Yeah, coming down from her ear down to her neck. And something startles her and she kind of backs into the oven. Isn't she's trying to make tea or something, and she backs in the oven and knocks the tea kettle off the oven, and then to balance herself puts her hand right on the burner that's going full blast. And Tom comes and grabs her and pulls her hand off, and she's like, I didn't even feel that. Like, Tom, why didn't I even feel any pain? Like, I didn't even feel the fire.
It's all falling very in line with the information being fed to us from the journal. The journal, I mean, honestly, the usage of the father's journal, when you go back and you revisit this, is an expertly placed device. Because as it's giving you information, you're seeing these things happen to Arletty and everything going on around them. And one thing to point is that scene with Tony was the point where she said, we're never leaving this place, are we? In the sense she's saying, oh God, we're going to be stuck here waiting forever with now what's happening with Arletty and so forth. But really, when you look at it from a less literal, more figurative point of view in the sense of the execution of the film and the story that's being told, without her even knowing it, she's saying they're never going to leave this place because of the curse. It's a well-placed line. Meanwhile, Tony is attending this movie. She goes to see a film at this movie theater, and she walks in, and there's only about 3 or 4 people in the theater. It's this beautiful, big, red theater.
It's a beautiful theater. It's all lit up from the outside when she goes in. And the minute she goes in, she goes to the concession stand. There's nobody working, so she just helps herself to a bag of popcorn. And the second that she enters the theater, the actual movie theater, you get a shot from the outside of the theater. The lights just shut off. Like all the theater lights shut off on the outside. And she's sitting in this theater, eating this bag of popcorn, which is just a small little bag of popcorn, right? It's not like a huge bucket. It's a small, like a bag you would get like a circus or something, just a small bag. Because there's a purpose for me saying that. But as she's sitting there, she's just kind of looking around. And you're right, there's only about 3 people. There's like an older guy sitting in the very front of the theater. She looks over to her left, and there's an old lady that's at the other stream of seats knitting. And then there's somebody behind her. That's it. And the movie starts, and we sort of get a movie within a movie. It's like some Western movie, something like the West and Us or something. And it's really funny because when she sees it's a Western, she like rolls her eyes and the most like she's really pissed off that this is a Western movie. But she's enjoying herself. I mean, it's very action packed. There's like two like old, Little House on the Prairie type women beating the shit out of each other, and it's just.
I need to get my hands on that movie because it's a real movie.
Know, right?
God, it looks like a fucking good time.
They're like throwing each other through windows and their big old dresses.
And there's one thing to acknowledge right as that movie started, Troy, is one shot that I just really found very striking is right before the lights drop. There's a spotlight on the screen, and she's looking around and she looks straight towards the screen, and there's a man in the front row. And he's seated with his arm on the seat, looking over his shoulder, looking directly at her.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's so unsettling because he's all the way down at the front of the theater, but she can tell he's looking right at her. And then the lights go down and the movie begins. And it starts on such an unsettling note. Like you as the viewer know shit's about to go down. And it does. And it does. This scene is, man, if I could honestly say top 10 favorite sequences in a horror movie, what unfolds here, it would honestly go on my list. I'm serious about that.
I agree 100%. This has become, for me, this is a very iconic, or it should be a very iconic scene. It's so unsettling. It's so subtle. It's done extremely well. And it plays on kind of, at least a fear I have is like, not only just a theater, but you think about like just being in a place that you're not familiar with. And when your senses are engaged by a movie, a moving picture, and the sound of the movie is loud. Theaters are very loud. All your attention is focused on that. You're not focused on what's going on behind you, to the side of you. You're focused on the movie. It's a very, it's like sort of like, I don't want to compare it to like the shower scene in Psycho, but very similar, like setting, because in a shower you're very uninhibited. You're really not paying attention to much of what's going on outside of your little area that you're in, and that's what makes it terrifying when someone rips the shower curtain open and starts stabbing the hell out of you. This is done even more subtly, because what happens is she's watching the movie, the camera is just focused on her, and all of a sudden the door opens behind her, and one person comes straggling in and sits in the row directly behind her. She's watching the movie, having a gay old time. She's enjoying herself. She's eating the popcorn like this is the smallest bag of popcorn that lasts, like it's unlimited popcorn, because she is eating it throughout the whole scene. She's pouring it in her mouth, and it's a normal size bag of popcorn. And even I'll get to it, but I just thought it was funny. Anyway, so throughout about maybe a minute and a half period of time, you're watching her watch the movie as all of these people come into the theater behind her and sit behind her. And she's oblivious because she doesn't hear it. She's not paying attention. You get to the point where you get a shot, and all of a sudden, like the 3 rows behind her are full of people.
And they are just sitting there. The thing that makes it, they're just watching this movie.
They're just sitting there watching the movie. And all of a sudden, kind of what makes her notice is one guy comes in, and he comes in and sits like literally the seat next to her. And she kind of looks at him and gives him like a weird look, like I think I would, like, hey, the theater's empty. Why are you sitting next to me? So when she turns over, all of a sudden this big woman comes down her aisle and like literally sits next to her. And this is what triggers her to think, okay, something's not right.
Right. And she like looks up behind her, and there's the moment where she responds, like you see it on her face, like, oh my fucking God, there are all these people behind me. It is a chilling moment.
And she tries to get up, and obviously she's not going to there's 2 people on each side now, so she has no choice but to climb over the front, the row in front of her. And you get a shot, it's a shot of like when she crawls over, her hand grabbing the seat and the popcorn piling out of the bag. It's a full bag of popcorn, even though she just was spending the last 20 minutes eating and pouring it down her throat. Anyways, she runs around. She tries to get out of the theater. The doors are locked. So she runs to the front of the theater where the screen is, and just like she realizes like this is not good, because as she gets to the front, turns around, all of a sudden all of the people start climbing over the seats. They don't even go off the aisles. They're like jump over the seats coming at her. And it is terrifying.
Oh my God, it is. It's chilling. It's honestly, it's like the only word I can think of, the way this plays out, because it takes its time. It's not rushed by any means. Even when she gets up and climbs over the seat, the individuals behind her, they don't break their view on the screen. It's not like they instantly take chase. It's so weird because they're kind of just in this fixated trance. And so she goes to the one door on the left-hand side, it's bolted, and she starts panicking. She goes to the right-hand side, she's pulling on the door, she's panicking, she starts crying and screaming, and they're still looking at the screen. Like, they're not, it honestly, it takes until she runs to the curtain by the exit and pulls it and it reveals, like, the usher, who is also one of them, and she screams and she turns around, but they all stand up. And they're looking at her, and then they just start coming at her. And so she runs to the center of the stage platform in front of the movie screen, and she just stands there panicking. And I think it's so terrifying because it's honestly, you could tell she's just in a place where she has no idea what to do. She has nowhere to go. And all of them just run at her, and they pull her down, and you just see her hand get dragged down, covered in blood, as she's screaming. It's amazing. It is horrifying.
It's chilling. If you don't get chills watching this scene and thinking about maybe the times that you've, because I know I've been in movie theaters before where I'm like one of the only people in there. Like there's been 2 movies I've gone to in my entire life where I was the only person in the theater. And I thought it was a gay old time until I saw this fucking scene. And I'm like, okay, the next time I go into a theater, yeah. But, and the movies were the Psycho remake, which makes sense why nobody else was there.
Oh, yeah.
And Hellfest. Hellfest, which is underrated.
Absolutely.
More people should have saw Hellfest.
We're reviewing it. Hellfest. It's coming up soon.
Hellfest is awesome. Anyway, so it's a terrifying scene. That's all I can say. I can't say anything more about it. It is one of, if I had to make a list of my top 10 favorite sequences in a horror film that I thought were creepy, effective, just bone chilling, this would be one of them,
it's
by far.
I think it's like a lot of it's Tony's. It's like the desperation. It's not like I look at her as like a weak character. It's the mode of panic you go into, where what do you do? Like there's no exit. There's nowhere to go. She basically just gets backed up against a wall and is cowering with as these creatures just run at her from all angles and pull her down to her death. It's so desperate and bleak.
It's bleak.
Yeah.
Bleak. Yeah. We said that at the same time. It very much is bleak. Yeah. That's all I can say. This scene fucked me up. The first time I saw it and those people were just piling in, you should have seen me. I think my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, I knew something was going to happen, obviously. I did not know that was going to happen. So God, yes. Thank you for this wonderful film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so Tom now goes to look for Tony, finds the car, but again, this town is just eerily empty. And he's walking through the town and he just like happens to go past this alley and he looks down the alley and there's just this group of people just standing there staring straight at him.
Right. Basically, everybody in the town is now, it's in the middle of the blood moon and what's
the blood moon.
It's taking its full effect and everyone within this town is falling under the spell of it. I'm assuming based off to their exposure of looking at the moon. For how long they're under the influence of the moon depends how quickly they fall under the spell. Because there's a few people who are still falling under it.
Well, yeah, but there is, yeah. Because there's the girl. Well, one of these people rushes at Tom and attacks him, but he's able to push her to the ground.
Yeah.
So he runs away, and he's running. Yeah, this is what your whole point here is. This girl comes out of the store. And she is begging for help. And she's like, these people, they came into my house looking for my kids. And they're just, can you help me? I don't know what to do. Something along those lines. And he looks at her and all of a sudden a stream of blood starts coming down her eye. And he's like, your face is bleeding. I can't help you. I'm sorry.
You're under the fucking curse of the goddamn blood moon.
I gotta go.
Yeah, and that whole sequence is really creepy because her dialogue, she's as she's describing what happened, she's saying they came through our windows. They came at my children like sharks. I tried to help them, but there's nothing I could do. She's basically saying that her children were devoured in front of her. Terrifying. Like it's really scary. And one thing to acknowledge right now for the listeners is at this point in the movie, it's cutting back and forth pretty rapidly between Tom and Arletty and what's going on between the two of them. As he's walking through the town looking for Tony, she's having her own experiences of falling under the curse of the blood moon. She even at one point, as she's feeling ill, she sticks out her tongue and there's a fly on her tongue. And she like vomits up insects and lizards.
But it cuts back to her after this scene with Tom, and she's stabbing herself in the leg with a needle.
Yeah.
Because she's trying to feel pain. And like you literally, it's so disturbing to watch. She has her dress pulled up and she has this it's a straight pin. It's a very long needle and she's like just jabbing it into her leg. And there's this one shot where you can see her just dig it in and start twisting it around.
And the skin's like pulling up and there's no blood, but you see that it's in the skin.
And she's not even reacting and she throws it down and says, fuck. And she gets up and this is when she goes in the mirror and opens her mouth and there's this like beetle or bug on her tongue and she's like starts screaming and like throws up and it's like lizards and worms. It is just, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
It's terrifying. It's so like, it's such a mind fuck at this point. It's so in your head. And even what you're seeing with the visuals with Tom, who is not in a place where he's losing his state of reality yet, but as he's going through the town, and he's several moments where he sees those, as we mentioned, the people in different areas, like just standing there looking at him. They're all looking at him, and so he starts moving quicker, and he starts like running, and finally he's like, he hears them coming, so he turns around, and there is this cut where he turns around, and it's just a shot of a horde of them running at him, and it made me fucking jump out of my fucking seat so hard, harder than any movie I've seen recently. That it's just such a well-placed scare, and that's when he gets attacked by one of them, and scratched on the neck. But it's a jump that just is so unexpected, and it's because of a good mix of sound design and just a really well-placed cut. It's really a good moment. I thought it was a standout moment, and it's unexpected, totally unexpected.
We're back with Tom, and he is walking through the town, and these two random cops show up, which I don't know where they came from. I don't know why they're there, but they are. And they they tell the people, get back, get back. And they start like opening fire on the group of people, monsters, whatever you want to call them, the possessed people. And it's real quick because one cop looks over at the other, and the other cop's eye starts bleeding. And so the other cop runs away, and the cop whose eye's bleeding shoots him. And the zombies or the possessed people come and ascend on the cop after he's been shot and eat him. I just wanted to know, where'd these cops come from? I don't know. Because there's nobody in this town for the entire movie.
Yeah, I've got a theory though. Hear me out. So what I'm assuming, because keep in mind, you've seen other moments involving the police with Arletty's father's body being found. What I'm assuming is that, as we've mentioned before, that there are people outside of the town that know what's going on, and because the whole purpose of the Messiah of evil is to spread the word that he's coming, that this Messiah of evil is coming, and with him is this army of the undead, and it's all starting at Point Dume, and so you see the homeless man talking about it. You see with the gas station attendant, it's implied that he knows there's something more. And then when the body of her father's found, she even said, she's like, why are they lying to me? I think, in my theory, the police are aware that something is happening at Point.
They have to be. Yeah, they have to be.
And so when they pull up and they say, get away, they're telling Tom, get out of here. Because Tom is obviously not under the influence, but I'm assuming that they're tied into what the police officer said when the body was found earlier. You should really get her out of here. They're basically saying, get the fuck out of this town. Something's about to happen. Other people on the cusp of this town, I think, know that Point Dume is the source of something dark, and these cops are basically trying to prevent these ghouls from getting out. Because even like the homeless man said, they came down from the hills and the children were eating raw meat and everything. I think they've tried to get out of the town before,
That makes sense. I can see that. Yeah. It's just, this movie just has so much going on that even like 3 or 4 viewings, I don't think is enough to catch everything that happens, especially like when you're trying to take notes as you're watching and, and all that stuff. So I can totally see that. Anyway, so we get this, we're back to our Nettie. She wakes up and there's someone coming towards her, and it's her dad. And it's very just in your face, is right there. All of a sudden her dad's there, and you can tell right away there's something not right with him, just the way he's walking. And he basically tells her the story of what's happening, and it happened 100 years ago. And what it was is a minister with the Donner Party. Am I getting that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Donner Party. They are the individuals that are lost up.
Plane crash.
They're forced to return to cannibalism. Yep. Mm-hmm.
This minister that was with the Donner Party shows up to this town, Port Bethlehem, which is now Port Dume, and it's the Dark Stranger, and he met a soldier, and you get a flashback of this, and after the Dark Stranger tells the soldier where he was from, what he was doing, he actually kills him. He bites the guy, and then the people that find this dark stranger, that he attacks them too, and bites them. So it's the dark stranger, this minister from the Donner Party, is the Messiah of evil that is delivering all of this horror and possession during the blood moon, because he just happened to show up 100 years ago during a blood moon. And you get a good little flashback. It's not a very long flashback sequence. It's not a very in-depth flashback sequence, but you do get a little flashback sequence that shows him show up, shows his interaction with the soldier.
Yeah, and you do get like a cool little even gore shot of him like having been already cannibalized. You see like a quick shot of the individual post mauling, and yeah, like the whole thing with this, like, because the Donner Party happened, it was like pioneers back in like the 1840s. And I think it was like 18. It was like several years. Like they were. It was a winter that they were snowbound in the mountains, and most of them died. But the ones that survived turned to cannibalism. But what I think is really cool here is it's one of those situations where like they play off the knowledge we have of the Donner Party, because very little like is honestly really known about what would have happened up in those mountains. But that evil that was brought down with them. With the survivors, and that basically this Messiah of evil is the goal of this is with the blood moon now every year with this curse is to take this evil that was brought down and to spread it around the world. And that's the goal. Every blood moon is to find a way to get it outside of just Point Dume, to spread it from there. But it hasn't been successful up to this point.
It has not. And immediately after her dad telling her this story, he tries to attack her. And he grabs the paint, the buckets of paint, and just starts throwing them everywhere. So there's paint splashing the walls. And then he takes a gallon of like blue paint, dumps his hands in it, and wipes it all over his face, covers his head in blue paint. So now this image is of this guy covered in blue paint that has gone completely psycho, trying to kill his daughter.
It's so
growling at her like literally he's on a mission to kill her. And she gets backed into the the painting work shelf, and he is like coming at her full force. She has no choice. She grabs a pair of shears and stabs him in the shoulder. And this is her dad. I mean, you have to think about this. This father is trying to like brutally like devour his daughters, and she has no choice but to stab him. He falls back, crashes against a table, and cans of paint thinner spill out everywhere, and he gets covered in paint thinner. And he still gets up and tries to attack her. And she all of a sudden has a flashback in her mind of the homeless man earlier telling her, you're going to have to kill your father. You can't bury him. You're going to have to set him on fire. So what does she do? She grabs a branch out of the fireplace, sets it on fire, and sets her dad on fire.
You know, we said that there are two sequences in this movie that should be iconic. To be real, I would add this as a third, because the whole, first of all, the actor's voice, the father in general, it's creepy. It's another amazing performance. And this whole sequence leading up to the attack, he's basically telling her that he's become one of them. He's become one of these creatures, that he's losing all control, and then he does, and that he basically just becomes a monster and starts attacking her. And that's what he's throwing the paint, and she's watching in horror as he's covering himself in blue paint. And the visual of this old man with this distorted face just covered in blue moving in on his daughter, it is terrifying. And so when she cuts him, the red of the blood coming out against the bright blue of the paint, it is just so vivid, and it's just like these electric colors. And then when she sets him on fire, we get a full body torched man just flailing, running and flailing, and he collapses right in front of her. I mean, it is a big sequence
for a 1973 film. Yeah, you cannot say that they skimped out on like
the grand moments. Yeah, this movie has a lot of them.
Yes, because you get a full body that's like running around on fully on fire, falls on the floor, and the camera stays on it for several seconds as him just burning and flailing. And there's a scene of his hand like trying to reach out and just drops. It's something. I was just like watching this. I was just watching this. I was like, what the hell is happening here? I mean, a guy covered in paint, like trying to attack his daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom, and then we get Tom shows back up, and she doesn't know necessarily it's Tom, so she jumps out and she stabs him with a knife, and stabs him in the arm.
Yeah, with the garden shears. You get this really good shot of the shears coming up with the red paint behind it that the father had thrown.
Yeah, and so so Tom, she realizes it's Tom, and there's a scene with her and him just like in bed talking. He's in bed because he's been stabbed, and they're having a conversation, and all of a sudden, and it's very sudden, there's no like warning that this is going to happen. All of a sudden these ghouls start like jumping through the skylight, the windows. So there's a scene like of I don't know, it's dozens of these possessed zombies like literally crashing through the skylight roof, crashing through the window.
When Tom arrives at the house, he's very much in like, he is aware that shit is going down. And it's in a very much the mentality, we have to get out of here. She just set her father on fire. She stabs him and she injures him. Like the injury remains important. Because when she stabs him with the shears, it's not just like a scratch. Like she gets him good in his shoulder, and he's starting to bleed pretty heavy. But they're realizing that their time frame is pretty short, that they need to get out of this town. And there's a shot of the father's body when Tom sees the body, that you see the full body just smoldering, and it is again an amazing effect. But yeah, so these ghouls start jumping through the glass, and one thing I want to say is, like, I was trying to think of like, what do I compare these things to? Because they're definitely not Romero zombies. They're not vampires because they eat flesh. I would almost say like they are like the first take on like the 28 days later virus or something. They're like, they run, they jump through glass without injury. Earlier, when the one cop was possessed, his partner saw that he was bleeding from the eye. He shoots him in the throat. Remember? He shoots him in the throat, and he isn't even fazed by it. He gets shot in the throat, and then he just proceeds to shoot right back. So these things don't seem to respond to injury, unless they're like mortally wounded. And so they're jumping through the glass, and one of them tries to attack Tom, and he does manage to kill it. And when he kills it, the other ghouls just turn on it and start eating that one.
Yeah, he drags it out for them to eat.
Yeah,
he drags it out so that they can escape. So they get out of the house, and they run down to the beach trying to get away. And as they're running, they just keep seeing these different ghouls standing on the beach until they're all like coming after them. So they have no choice. I mean, I don't know what I would do. I mean, they literally are surrounded by these zombie things, and their only recourse is to get into the water.
Yeah, and it's daylight at this point too. And the thing to acknowledge is these things are supposed to. It's only the time frame of the blood moon.
The blood moon, yeah.
That this curse took this religion, because it's referred to as a religion they're trying to spread. It's supposed to only be in effect for the course of the blood moon, and things are supposed to go back apparently to normal. But it is now daylight, and they're still being pursued, and the ghouls are not going away. The ghouls are surrounding them. They're just standing on the hills watching them, chasing them out to the water. And Tom has that injured shoulder, and so they go out into the ocean, and they're swimming into the water, and Arletty comes up from the water, and she looks around, and Tom is gone.
And she's screaming, "Tom, Tom!" And there's her little voiceover. She says, "I know that I injured him way too bad. It's my fault." And we assume he drowns, and then we get a shot of her going underwater, and it's all quiet, and so we think she drowned too. Until we get kind of the next scene where she is now sitting in the asylum from the beginning. She's sitting outside, and we get her voiceover. So it's a nice bookend. The film ends the same way it begins. It's really cool. It's a nice bookend, parallel bookend at that, because it's it ends the same way it began, as I said. So she is now saying that they did not let her drown, that the stranger returned and basically let her go because he knew that nobody was going to believe her. Who's going to believe a story about people turning into flesh-eating zombies? And she's like, and guess what? Nobody does believe me. They don't believe me here. Um, and there's a scene where like there's two doctors walking, and they're even talking about her. They're like, oh, she thinks that this town was possessed, and oh, that's crazy. And she's out, so she can come out once a day and sit out. So she's outside, and she's like, yeah, nobody believes me. So he was right, but they have a plan, and I need to warn people because they are going to escape from Port Dume, and they're going to be everywhere. So then you get, as she's saying this voiceover, you get the shot of her coming down the same corridor that she was coming down at the beginning of the film, and she's basically saying, I'm trying to warn people, but nobody will listen. These things are going to come and take over, and there will be no one to hear you scream. And she lets out that blood curdling scream.
Oh my God, what a phenomenal, like a chilling note to end the movie on. And one thing I think to acknowledge is that like this ending is very vague and very sudden. They go out to the water and they, basically, they tell you that Tom drowned and so forth. But you do see, as she's giving this voiceover, you do see the visuals of like her by one of the fires in this like white gown with her hair in this very bouffant, like curled style. Like obviously they brought her back and they almost dressed her up in a form of an offering or some form of a sacrifice or some part of a ritual. And basically like it's implied that she's some kind of tool for their overall purpose is what I'm taking away. Because you do see the minister come back up the beach and basically walk up to her. You don't hear any of the dialogue. You don't know anything exactly what goes on. You just see a few shots of this moment. But basically, it's her duty to spread the word of this religion to the world. But no one believes her, and so thus she's trapped in the asylum. But her final voiceover is that it's her spreading the warning that the Messiah of evil is coming.
But nobody's listening,
and no one will hear her. Yeah.
She leaves with that same line: "Nobody will hear you scream," and then the film ends. I mean, this is a film that has to be seen to be believed. I think not even. I mean, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean that in a very good way, because even our descriptions don't really do the actual visuals and imagery of this film justice. There is one thing I don't want to, we're approaching the 2-hour mark here again, so I don't want to, even though our fans love us, they don't care. But I don't know. I have an interpretation of this film, or a possible interpretation of this film that I was going to bring forward, and I don't know if anybody will agree with me or just think that I'm totally off base with this. And watching this film, I sort of can see an interpretation of this film not really happening. That this has been all in her mind as part of her being in an asylum. She was in an asylum because of maybe some issues with her father, who knows. So this was something that she made up in her mind. It just, to me, it seems like it's sort of plausible because the film starts with her in the asylum, it ends with her in the asylum, and everything else is kind of filled in during the middle. And I'm wondering, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has ever thought of it. I'm sure they have, but I was thinking that did this really happen, or is this are we ultimately watching this very mentally ill person's wild imagination play out?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely something to think of, like how much of this was in her head and how much of this really happened. There's also something to acknowledge from the fact of like the character of Tom and some of the like inconsistencies with the overall storyline. And the actor Michael Greer, who is known for being an early openly gay actor, by the way. But he played both Tom and he also played the minister. And so that like leaves the question of how tied into all of this was Tom. Because you've got this whole story of Tom being this Portuguese art dealer and so forth and so on. But he gives this whole backstory, but, she comes up from the water, he's gone. And you get no closure with that. Now, is there actually more to that character than we know? How many layers are there to the onion in the sense of you get what you're seeing on the surface level, but how much is implied? And I think there's something to think of who is the minister. He's never really explained other than this whole situation with the Donner Party. You don't know any more than what you're given in that flashback and the journal dialogue. And that's great, to be honest. I like that because as the viewer, we're left with this open-ended concept of, we're being fed an absurd story and we're seeing some absurd visuals. How much of it is true and how much is left to figure out? Well, that's our job, is to put together the pieces of the puzzle to really figure out the story. And it only adds to the experience.
Yeah, I think that this film cannot be interpreted straightforward. Even there's nothing about this film that's straightforward. However, I think that when you think you have it figured out, I do think there's room for other interpretations. Like that did not come to me until about my third viewing, is why I was like, wait a minute, did this really happen, or are we just watching? Like I said, are we just watching her? The film that we saw, was this really just her imagination? Yeah. That's why nobody believes her, because they know she's full of shit. You've been in this asylum your whole life. This did not happen to you. And it just, to me, it doesn't make sense that these creatures or these zombies who are under the spell of this, would pull her out of the water and let her live. It just seemed weird to me. But hey, regardless of how you want to interpret the film, it's a great film. If you're a horror fan, it should be required viewing. There are at least 2, possibly 3 of the most terrifying, well executed scenes you will ever see. So again, hopefully if you've watched this and you've watched it because we told you to watch it, you agree that this film deserves way more recognition.
Oh my God! If you consider yourself a horror fan in general, you should do yourself the privilege of watching this movie. If you're a filmmaker, because let's be real, you and I as indie filmmakers, if you're a filmmaker and you want to see how to make an impactful movie without having a ton of resources, because at the end of the day, this movie relies really on great realistic locations and simplicity. A lot of this is just the simplistic elements of, like you said, the horror movie and the feeling of being trapped in a location with people you don't know, the supermarket sequence and the usage of sound. It does such a good job with just using the bare bones, and just taking advantage of some really amazing sets. It's just such a well done piece of cinema. Watch it.
I think that this film was ahead of its time, was doing stuff that was way ahead of its time that no other horror films were doing. And I just wonder, and I just wonder, and I'd love to hear people's opinions. So when we post this and you hear this, I wonder why this film is not more well known. That's my question, listeners. So when we post this, I want you to post your responses. Why do you think this film is not more well known?
Yeah. I this is one, we always try to encourage the listeners to discuss and talk with us. And this is one, honestly, I want to have discussions about, because it leaves so many aspects open-ended. There's so many questions. There's the aspect of the fact that once these people start to become these ghouls and fall under the trance, are they working for a greater purpose? Are they working because of this minister? Are they all under one person's power? Is it a greater curse? What do you think the Messiah of evil represents? There's so many questions and there's so many things to talk about. So please view it. Mandatory viewing.
view it. We hope that, this was enlightening and a good episode for you. Not as maybe humorous as some of our other ones, but this is a film that does not lend to a lot of humor.
I know.
It really doesn't. You already know we're hilarious.
Oh, yes. This deserves to be analyzed. This doesn't deserve to be mocked.
But there's nothing in this film that I think would even lend itself to some humor. I mean,
I respect it too much.
I try to add a little, but there are some little things. But other than that, this film is not. It's so good. There's nothing absurd about this film. It's like I said, it's ahead of its time. I'm so glad I got to watch.
I'm happy you liked it.
I would have probably not watched this one. I seriously would not. I had never really. I think I've heard the title, but I've never. It's not one I ever see brought up as one of the 20 best horror films you got to watch. Just never have. I never even saw any. I've never seen a clip of the supermarket scene. I've never seen a clip of the theater scene.
Yeah.
None of that. So I went into this completely blind, and it's because this film, for some reason, is just not.
It should
known.
absolutely be listed on a most influential horror movies, and you having seen Rebirth and everything, just to say real quick with the genres that impact me and influence me, holy shit, do I get a lot of influence from this in just the horde sequences, and I really think that this movie had a lot of influence on the fast zombie, on the running zombie, on what we saw in the Dawn of the Dead remake. Maybe not directly, but you see these things are quick and they're scary, and they just honestly managed to do a great job with frightening me. A 1973 movie scaring me, I would not expect that today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even I think it does. I think it had a lot of effect on some of the Italian horror that came after it.
Yeah,
for sure. So that's Messiah of Evil, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed our conversation. We could go on and on and on about it. I really could, but
sadly we can't. Unless you want a 4-hour episode, which I simply don't have time for.
No, we're going on 2 hours here. So that's Messiah of Evil. Great conversation, great episode. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, I mean, honestly, other than just, again, encouraging the listeners to view it and following up and contacting us and telling us what they think about it. Because I'm sure that we're not going to be the only ones in this boat, especially for first-time viewers. I want to hear a few of you respond just as excited as I am about talking about it, So, I love it. As more thumbs up than I have thumbs. Yeah.
Yes, me too. Big thumbs up.
Yeah.
Big thumbs up. So that's that. So, okay. So our next episode.
Big news. Big news.
Big news. We haven't done this yet. But we're gonna do something a little bit different. We are going to have a guest host on our next episode.
Oh my God. I mean, if ever we had a sound effect, it's now, Troy. Cue some kind of trumpet sound effect or something.
Yes. So, and we are going to be discussing a very quintessential, I believe, it's not really slasher movie, but even you want to talk about whether or not, and this is why I wanted to do this film. When I first started this podcast, I told Roger I do really not want to do this film because it's been covered so much and it's divisive, and my opinion on it is probably not going to be in line with a lot of other gay queer podcasters, which generally in my opinions don't really align with a lot of gay people anyway. Because I don't know why, but so I was like, Roger, we're not doing this film because A, I'll piss people off, and B, it's been done. But we're going to do it anyways because we're bringing in a guest host. We're going to talk about the classic slasher film from 1983 called Sleepaway Camp.
Sleepaway fucking Camp. Iconic,
and apparently now problematic because of the ending. Don't even get me started on it, please. We'll save that for the episode. But we are going to bring in a guest host because I felt like this is a heavy one to talk about. So I think because I know there are people that are very passionate on both sides that, hey, this is a classic horror movie. And then there's people that, oh, no, this movie needs to be canceled. It's horrible. It represents the trans community in such a horrible way. Blah, 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 blah on both sides. So I wanted to bring in another voice. So we are doing that. So
yeah. Yeah, a
A
moderator.
moderator who probably has his own opinions on the film. He's a huge
Yeah.
horror fan as well. And would you just say
Yes.
who it is?
Just
Okay,
say
so
it.
we
Let's
are
hear
bringing
it.
our very first guest that we are bringing on to discuss Sleepaway Camp is Chris Jenner.
Who else could it be?
And and if you don't know who Chris Jenner is, we both had the huge pleasure pleasure of working with Chris on my last film, Teacher Shortage. Roger got to act alongside of him,
And kiss him gently and softly on his supple lips.
and I got to direct him and work with him in that capacity. Great guy, super talented.
Huge talent. He does it. What doesn't he do? He sings.
He sings.
He dances.
He dances.
He's an actor.
He's an actor.
He's got that song. Welcome to the Hollow. It's coming. We're going to play the song. I bet you anything we're playing a segment from that song in the next episode. We will. It's a good song.
But we haven't been. But you know what? It'll also be like the first time since we filmed Teacher Shortage that we will like kind of be reunited.
Oh my God!
So
I can't wait.
It's going to be fun. So yeah. So that'll be our next episode. So yeah, we just like I said, I Sleepaway Camp is a film I was very hesitant to cover.
Yeah.
And I told Roger that at the beginning. However, I think it's an important film to cover. And because it's divisive with the queer community, I wanted to have more than one other voice on, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think it's important to say, when it comes to films and their interpretations of things and how they present things and movies from certain eras, it's important to be able to discuss these things openly on either side of the spectrum and be respectful of each other, but also like keeping in mind that a movie from 1983 was coming from a completely different mentality than something in 2021. And you've got to be able to look back on that and acknowledge that and realize the amount of progress that's happened since then. And we'll obviously go into that.
And it's weird to me that people can't do that.
Yeah.
And this is, like I said, where I may piss people off, because I personally feel if you don't understand that a movie made in 1960 is not going to follow the same social progress or social ideals or expectations that we have now or you think we should have now, that's
Yeah. And don't be throwing in Dress to Kill afterwards either, because
okay, so it's Psycho, Dress to Kill, and Sleepaway Camp are the three movies that to me you're starting to hear people say, oh, they're transphobic, they need to be canceled. You know what? How many fucking movies have we had where a straight person has been a killer?
Yeah.
Are we trying to say that a trans person can't be a killer or a gay person can't be a killer?
And are we trying to say that that's not a motivation in the sense of how these people are treated? And as somebody I am a huge advocate for the trans community.
You are huge,
very outspoken. But if we can't use something as a reasonable tool for explaining a plot device in a movie, then that's just not realistic. People are affected by these things. People are affected by these things because of how they're treated by other people. And that certainly would apply in 1983. And let's not get too into it because we're going to go into the meat of this.
Not.
But you and I will not. I'll tell you this. I'm a huge advocot for the trans community, and you and I will not be at each other's throats no matter what your angle.
Oh, no. We're going to be very respectful.
I get what you're saying on this, and I think you and I are actually probably in a very coming from the same place, to be honest.
And I can also acknowledge why people would find it problematic.
Absolutely.
There's the whole aspect of it being used solely as shock value.
Absolutely. But does that mean that this movie should be erased and canceled for those reasons? Well, that's what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, so we're gonna stop it there because I don't want to get too far into this. So if it's something you don't want to listen to because you already know you might not, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're gonna cover it, and
we're going to touch on some touchy topics.
So until next week with Sleepaway Camp and our lovely Chris Jenner, who we love. The ageless Chris Jenner. So now he has to come on because we've already announced him. Chris, you hear that? We've already announced you're coming on.
He's like Peter Pan. He's just preserved in youth.
All right. So so that's that. So we are right at 2 hours. So we are going to bid you adieu.
And please, guys, you know the drill. Like it, comment, give us some love any way you can. But please, for the love of God, message us and comment and let us know what you think about Messiah of fucking Evil.
Yes, we want to know. We want
to hear. Until then, though, we love y'all. We'll see you next week.
Oh, and don't be stingy with those 5-star Apple Podcast ratings. They help.
Come on now, look at us. We're giving you all of our blood, sweat, and tears, including tears of blood. Messiah of evil.
All righty.
Farewell.
Good night, good people.